Recently, I was out in London with a friend and we came across these big interactive screens that had these dart type objects moving around in a whole bunch of swirly patterns. And it got me thinking, and I thought I'd do a bit of a tutorial on how I'd make something like that. But before we go ahead, if you could like and subscribe to my channel or follow me on Instagram, wherever you're watching, that'd be much appreciated. Okay, let's get to it. So we're here in a brand new Houdini and I'm going to launch my quick start template out of Slingshot. I'm going to build this just for Mantra for now because I'm not going to render it. And that'll put a few things in my scene here. I'm going to dive inside this setup and I'm going to create a box. And what I want this to do is I want this to be a little bit of a playground for our particles to move in. So I'm going to set something up. So it's going to be a little deeper in the Z-axis because that's where our camera's facing. I'm going to clip this like so. Ooh. And we're just going to, there we go, take that and we're going to poly extrude. Oh, I cannot type. There we go. We're going to take this and we're going to just give it some depth. We need a bit more than that. There we go. And let's stick some points in there. So we'll do a points from volume. And I'm going to just increase the point separation. And I'm going to add some jitter scale like this. And before I go any further, let's just change some display settings. So I'm going to display particles as pixels and turn off display sprites. And I'm going to set the background to dark because that is how I like it. Okay, so let's now put down a pop network and we're going to attach this into our first input here. We'll dive inside. We're going to remove this merge, we don't need it. And let's turn our guide off here, turn the emission type to all points. And then we're going to put down an enable solver. And we're just going to tell this thing to inject some new points where the simulation frame is equal to 1. Like so. And then we're going to put down a pop VOP, plug this in here, we'll call this thing add curl noise, there we go, and we'll dive inside. And we're going to add, as we said, a curl noise to our force. And this is a fairly simple setup, it's nothing too complicated. Let's tone back our roughness a touch. Let's go to 0.15 would be nice. I'm just going to copy these over here. So you only have to put values in once. I'm going to set this to 0.2 for now. And our amplitude can come to 0.75. We can promote these up later if we want to, but they'll do for now. And let's go in here. Let's grab this thing. Let's just type this in. Type in F start, $F start here. So it always goes in our start frame. And I know I'm going to want to add some pre-roll to this. So I'm going to start us off at 1001, which you should always do. And so what does this give us? Okay, let's just play back in real time. This is looking pretty good. Starting to see some swirls emerge. I think we're going to need this to start a little bit sooner. So we're going to add some pre-roll to this. We'll just say F start minus 50. So the start frame will be 50 frames before this. And this is looking okay. It's definitely getting there. Let's just dive outside here. And we'll just set our shot camera to be a little wider. So when we're looking through this, yeah, can see some shapes. So this is looking okay. Let's dive back into our pop network and make a few changes. So we're going to this thing here. I might push the roughness up a little. So let's double that. And let's see what we get. Okay, this is starting to look a little more like something I want. Let's promote up our amplitude here. I'm going to middle mouse click promote parameter. And what's this thing called? It's called amp. So I'm going to, with that node selected, I'm going to go value over time, which is another Slingshot shelf tool. And this is, we're going to type it in, and this is amp. It is a float integer. And so I want to, during the pre-roll, sequence, I want this thing to go between, say, something more aggressive and then something more appropriate for our final look. So we'll go from 951 through to, we'll do the frame before we see it. Sorry, I need 1,000 there. Give it a bit of a kick, and then by the time it gets to here, it slows down. That's looking pretty nice. Maybe we set this even higher. Let's go to something like 4. And again, we need to reset simulation. There we go. So we from our first frame, we've got something that already looks a little bit funky, and we can get some nice shapes coming out of this. One thing we might want to do is put down a pop speed limit, just so we don't get anything too erratic. I'll leave these all turned off for now, and we'll come back if we find we need it. So let's jump out here, and let's create another geometry node. And in this, we're going to create our dart. So I'm going to dive inside here, and I'm going to put down a tube. And I'm going to make sure this is polygons. We're going to align it on the Z-axis. And I want this to be at 0. And I'm just going to scale the height up a touch. I'm eyeballing this to see something kind of like that. Looks good. And we'll add some subdivisions onto this thing. So let's go. Yeah, that looks about right. Maybe a bit more. That's cool. Okay. So now we're going to put down a polyfill node. And before we do that, actually, let's fuse the points that are in our collapsed end here. We can just leave that on its defaults. So we'll take this polyfill, and we just want it to be a single polygon. We're going to make sure we output this patch group, which we're going to then group promote. There it is. Promote this thing from the primitive level up to the edge level. So we want to do that with patch, and we'll keep the original group. We're going to need that. And then let's include elements on the boundary. So we should end up with something that looks like this, which is cool, because then we can put down a poly bevel like this. And we're going to grab the edge version of our patch group. And let's just add a touch of distance into this. Okay, it's a bit too much. Let's go 0.03, something like that. Let's add a few more divisions in here, and that just gives us a nice beveled edge on there. And then we can blast away our original patch group, the primitive level one, which should be that. There we go. And we're going to polyfill again, and this time we want a quadrilateral grid. And we'll, if we look at this here, this looks nice, except it bulges, so we can just smooth the hell out of it, and it should go flat. And cool, so that's our piece of geometry. We're going to just put down a material node. So we can assign a material here, whatever we want that to be. And we can put an output here. So that whatever we have selected, it'll always output from this. Do I have a material I can grab? Yeah, I can. So in Slingshot, it will automatically set up some basic materials. I'm just going to put a gray shader on there. Okay, so now we've got our object and we've got our particles. I'm just going to clean these up before we proceed. So what do I want out of this? I'm going to want everything to get deleted except our position. I don't think I need the comma. Except velocity and except our ID. We might need that. So that should be fine. If we look at this, yep, they all still exist. And so now we've got this. We're going to select our attribute delete here, and we're going to click on base instance setup out of Slingshot. And I'm going to open this up and grab, where is it? Dart. There we go. Let's grab that. Create an object level instance node. Yep, we'll take that. And okay, so we have this all instance on. It's a little bit heavy. We might want to do a version with a slightly reduced number of particles for the time being. Let's just reset. There we go. So what do we want to start with? Let's start with this set of attributes thing. We could do a couple of things. Let's set some P scale values first. So I'm going to just set a consistent P scale here. So let's say 0.1. Okay, if we look through our camera, That seems a sort of semi-appropriate size, I guess. Let's work with that. We can always change it later. Let's remove this. And we're going to say, what are we going to say? Let's say at n equals normalize at v. And so it's going to take the direction of travel and it's going to normalize it. So it just becomes a directional vector. There's no amplitude that we have to worry about. And it's going to point our cone, which is facing along the z-axis, along here. So you can see if I play this back, that looks pretty good. All of our cones are moving around. So it's starting to look cool. Let's tone them back a tiny bit. Maybe we'll scale them down so they're even smaller. So it looks pretty good to start with. And maybe we do need that speed limit to come into effect here. So let's just play with the default and see what that looks like. If I hit play now. Okay, not much has changed. Maybe we want this. You know what, let's say $F start, or let's say $F is greater than $F start. So $F is greater than or equal to $F start. So this will come into effect once all our pre-roll has done its thing. So we can set this to something much lower, let's say 0.2. And I'm going to reset simulation again. So it's all displaced, and now they're all limited. So that looks pretty nice. Let's do it with more points. So we'll come back here, reset simulation, just let that cook out. There we go. Okay. So we've got quite a hefty scene going here now, but you can see we've got some nice swirling shapes. We've got all of our objects facing along there. And now with this instance node, this becomes our renderable object. So it should display in the viewport nicely. I'd recommend though turning this off and using the setup as the display. For some reason this displays nicely in the viewport without resorting to bounding boxes when the geometry is too heavy. And this one you can see it's going to show some of them as bounding boxes. So let's just work with this one for now. So that looks pretty nice. And this is how I'd create this sort of thing. So one thing you could do to slightly change how we're getting our points is we could do something like a VDB from polygons at this stage. And we'll turn this into a density volume. We want to fill interior. And that should be in the first input there. So we should end up with a volume like this. And then if we put down a volume VOP and plug this in here, we can do something. So let's pop down an anti-alias noise and an add. And I'm going to connect this in here. Let's make this a 3D noise and add these two things together. And then we'll put down a turbulent noise. And this is basically going to mean that the noise pattern is not an obvious Perlin noise type thing. So we're going to go multiply over here, plug this in here. And so now we have our density all changed and broken up. Let's put down another turbulent noise here and just have varying frequencies as well. So I'm going to say we want a fit range over here. And we're going to do a float to vector. There it is. We'll just connect all of these up to the output of our fit. And then this can become the driver of our frequency here. So that looks pretty good. Let's just set some values in here. So you can see there are areas where we get some small shapes because we've got a higher frequency, and areas where we get much larger blobs because we have a lower frequency. Maybe I don't want it to be that high. Maybe I want some slightly bigger shapes. Oh, that looked all right. And then we'll take this anti-alias noise. We can push this even higher and it will break up our position more aggressively. If we do something like 2. As you can see, this noise isn't recognizable as any type of, Perlin noise or if we just multiplied turbulence against our density, it would have looked very, very different. So now we've got that, we can scatter some points in here. And this could be an alternative way to source our points. I'm just going to turn relax iterations off, maybe feed 10,000 points. How many are we getting out of here roughly? 50,000-ish? Let's go 50,000 here. And so already we have some breakup in where those things are coming from. So that's sort of our option 1. There we go. This is option 2. I'm not sure how much of a difference this is going to make, but you can see we've already on frame 1 sort of broken their positions up, but the curl noise might totally break the whole thing. It is slightly different. I actually don't mind that so much. But this would be my strategy for creating an effect along these lines and adding in some cool instance objects. And you can light this to your heart's content. I don't need to show you how to pop an HDRI and a couple of spotlights in there. But of course, you can use the 3-point lighting tool on Slingshot as well if you wanted that done nice and quickly for you. But yeah, this is my strategy for creating something like this. I hope you enjoyed it. Please go ahead and like the video if you liked it, and subscribe or follow me on Instagram at Henry Medhurst Effects TD. If you want to get your hands on all of these Slingshot tools, there's loads available, and I'm trying to make more and more videos explaining what they do and some use cases for them. Just go ahead and look me up on Gumroad. You'll find them there. And there is a 50% off code if you go to my Instagram at Henry Medhurst Effects TD, where you can get this for 50%. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next one.